All right. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, citizens of YouTube. This is Pastor Dowell, and of course, you know, we have a very special family member that just dropped in on us, Brother Hondo Solomon.
Peace.
And of course, you know, Brother Richard, he probably was communicating with him before all of us in Elias. I was the last to come in at the party. But we've been communicating by phone, they communicate by internet, and it's just an honor to actually have him, to be able to stop by. It's been a long time coming because these two right here have definitely been wanting to meet each other. And of course, Elias, he wants to know when the next book is going to drop.
Everybody's asking when the book going to drop.
When the book going to drop, huh?
It's coming. It's coming.
He says it's coming. So the book. Hate to disturb you this morning during breakfast.
No, it's all good.
But the book. You know, you're the author of the Polygamous Papers, and we're going to talk a little bit about that and do a couple of videos. You mentioned something that you may have to end up going out of country in order to obtain more information. And most people don't understand that the majority of books that are out today, people just write information and they plagiarize, right, you know, other people's work and everything. But you actually do the groundwork, the footwork and something. So the delay is warranted. It's not that you don't want the book out. It's just that you want concrete, solid evidence. Is that right?
That's right. It has to be primary. You know, 99% of my work is primary documentation. It's from my own experience, from my childhood, observing it, or I've even lived with some polygamous families, and I've been able to observe how they operate.
Mm-hmm.
So going to another country, even though I've studied it from a documented perspective, you know, some of my consorts and consorts to be are from other countries. So it's good to go within these and other environments and actually get the information, because it's going to make it that much stronger, and it's going to make the book better. That way, when y'all pay money for it, when y'all spread the word, it's going to be that much better. And you know, I want to make sure that I present something to you which is high quality. So that actually goes into another thing, which is when we engage in entrepreneurship, we want to make sure we do things on a high grade level.
Mm-hmm.
You know, especially because that's part of our culture anyway. You know, you don't want to just put something out there that's roughshod. And that was one of the mistakes I made in the first edition of the original Polygamous Papers. I don't want to do that again. I want to make sure that the 7-year wait, the 7-year journey is going to be worth it. So, and I appreciate everybody's support thus far. So.
Well, you know, Straitway, we definitely going to do our job and help getting it out, because I'm sure you realize how people take us on the chin. And we don't mind. Is that right, Bro Rich?
Yes, sir.
We don't mind whatsoever at all. People take us on the chin, including when me and Elias make videos in the spring and summertime and stuff. They even let him have it. But the people that do oppose us, they do not come with any facts. They don't come with any reality. It's all emotion. It's all displaced emotion and stuff. I don't know what it is about this particular culture right here, but what do you think it is about this particular culture right here, Brother Hondo, that people have all of this, now visceral, meaning a bunch of emotion, negative emotions, especially when the subject of polygyny or polygamy is brought up?
Well, this is a gynocracy in the United States, in the West in general. So that means that socially the women actually control and dominate everything that's going on. Now, it's normal in a society for women to control things numerically.
Mm-hmm.
But once they start to pull and push at the whims of men and manipulate through their words, which is sorcery, and through sex, now we have a problem. That's why we say a gynocracy, because now you have men who are pandering to women. That means they become out of place.
Mm-hmm.
So the narrative, what I seek to do with my work is to elevate the discussion and to change the narrative from one which has been primarily female-led. Even the arguments that men are using are very effeminate.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, most men can't handle multiple women. Well, you must not know many men.
You got that right.
Because, I mean, for almost 40 years, I've known men who were doing it. Even in high school, I knew some of the younger cats who were juggling multiple women.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so if this is happening, it doesn't have to happen even in half of your society, because generally, polygamous cultures, you're going to have 10 to 20% of the men who are engaged in. I've seen as high as about 60% in the census data of India. I was actually at Georgia State University doing research on this before, and I found a whole file of census books. These are actually the census books themselves. They shipped in from India. I don't know how they got it, but it wasn't even reference material. It was just there. And I was reading the data. These were from like the 60s through the 80s. They went through every city, town, and village. And they counted the number of men, the number of women, the number of children under a certain age. And then they counted how many monogamous families there were, how many single people there were, and how many polygamous families there were. Then they counted how many polyandrous families there were. Very few polyandrous families, but it's more common in India. And what I saw was that in many of the towns and villages, you had 40 to 50% of the families who were polygamous. So, that was just, a few decades ago. Now, coming back to the West, when you have women dominating that discussion, there's nothing wrong with women talking about it. But what's happened, especially with the onslaught of social media, you have women trying to dominate and lead the discussion.
Yeah.
Now men are not thinking outside the box.
Correct.
So men are not thinking like, how is this practical? And can some men do it? And if they do, you accept that, even if you're monogamous. So we have monogamy on one hand, then we have prescriptive monogamy. And prescriptive monogamy is when you attempt to force that system on the people through warfare, through plague and famine,
disease,
occupation. I remember this economic warfare. One of the components of economic warfare is the military aspect. We were discussing earlier, me and Brother Elias. We were talking about how, when you go in with an army and you invade and you begin to kill off some of the men, women, and children.
That's right.
If you want to prevent them from growing again like a tree, you have to shut down whatever marriage system they got going on. You have to shut that down.
I say that quite often.
Yeah, me and my wife been looking into that. Japan was a highly polygynous society before World War II.
And so was China.
Yes. And, and as a matter of fact, the government actually encouraged polygynous marriages because that, brought about more soldiers and things like that. Now, after they got colonized by the Anglos, by the U.S., basically that got shut down. So what Hondo's saying there is absolutely the modus operandi.
And Brother Holloman, Solomon, a lot of people don't even comprehend and understand that when you live in the West, or you say West, or the Anglo-West, they don't understand that this is a culture. Yes. When we dropped out our matrix, dropped out the matrix of our mother's womb, this was already in place.
Right.
And the Bible says that a man that has traveled much knows much. And so you have a lot of closed-minded people in this matriarchal society.
Right.
And
I can get out of the neighborhood. Most men have barely left the neighborhood and they're grown. Like all you know is 9 to 5, 9 to 5, 9 to 5. I might take a vacation. But even when you take vacations, it's limited because you're going as a tourist.
Exactly.
You can't travel as a tourist. Men like us have traveled as actual travelers.
That's right.
We've engaged in combat. We've gone because we wanted to go, and we've lived in other countries. I've spent time in another country before, so it's you get a whole different perspective.
There you go.
They're reading books or from sex tourism, because a lot of people are taking sex vacations off in the East, and they're ruining their economies. Because when you go and you sully the women, you automatically ruin the economy, because women are very integral to how much finance is being moved, how much trade is happening, because women are the best propagandists on the face of the planet. Women immediately talk about what they like and what they don't like. So when you see anything trending, so you remember we're talking about economics.
Exactly.
When anything is trending, you got to go and find out who the women are spreading the word. Don't find who the men are. Men are going to kind of follow where the women are going in that regard, because we, especially as householders, we want to make sure that the women are taken care of in some capacity. So we kind of follow the breadcrumbs, and it always leads back to women.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I agree. It's no secret. I've been all over the world, and I've lived outside of the United States of America. You lived outside the United States of America.
Yes.
Matter of fact, you was actually stationed in Korea, wasn't you?
Yes, sir.
Stationed in Korea, and you traveled much. Elias, I guess your days are coming, bro. You still young.
Yeah.
But when we start speaking about and talk, because I didn't start talking about polygyny until 2012, something like that. 2012. And of course, I'm not going to stop either. You know what I mean? Because can't nobody do nothing against it because it's just too solid biblically. It's too solid culturally. It's too solid historically. And when you just fact checked everything, it's just too solid. It's
Physiology.
Exactly.
Even our physiology is designed for polygyny.
Yes.
In the next book, in fact, I actually go A to Z and I show you how everything in the world is based on a polygynous platform. That's going to be a deep section. Everything in the universe, in the heavens and in the earth, is based on a polygynous platform. I'm gonna break that down.
Elijah, what you got to say?
No, I mean, you can tell that unlike most authors today that you see, you can tell Brother Hondo's really put in the time and, you know, the energy into learning, you know, his craft or his trade, which this happens to be this particular subject. Unfortunately, we have a lot of people out there today that are like, you know, constantly spewing out false information on YouTube. Well, they do the same thing with books. So it's actually a good thing when you can actually find a good author that's actually putting out, you know, primary evidence of good information, and you're not wasting your money buying the book. So first of all, I would say go check out his book, The Polygamist Papers on Amazon. But my first question for Brother Hondo would be simple. A lot of people, especially in the American, you could say, mindset of the American colonies, they always, whenever you bring up the subject of polygyny, they instantly go to the Bible and say you got to show biblical support. When, from my opinion, you'll be able to correct me if I'm wrong on this, but polygyny is really, it doesn't need the Bible because it's a culture that it's basically a right of man that he was given by God when he was before he was born, just like breathing or any other. And that basically marriage in itself is both, you know, no longer just considered monogamy. Both monogamy and polygyny, as well as polyandry, is marriage.
Yeah.
But I guess the society, you could say, has chosen to separate polygyny from marriage. So now the modern mindset, whenever it's a polygynous example, they think of, you know, cheating or something like that.
Well, they think of Mormons, and you know most of the world's polygamists are not Mormon or Muslim.
Exactly.
See, so it's, you know, it's a thing of, you know, those Muslims over there do that, and they always say over there like it's, you know, this like it's outer space.
But the truth is, here in America, they practice it.
It's way too much disinformation.
But they practice it over here. They just do it under their laws and guys. They practice serial polygyny, divorce remarriage, mistresses. I mean, politicians, lawyers, all of them.
It takes more energy for men to cheat, duck, and hide than it does just to be honest with women. And you know, even if you don't have any so-called game, you don't have to game women. What did we talk about last night, Pastor? We said you have to be honest with women. You have to be yourself, and you have to have a plan. And when you just be that, you don't got to do a whole bunch of talking about polygamy. I made a video called A Woman's Devotion some time ago on YouTube, and y'all check that out. And I said that you really don't have to convince women about polygamy. You know, I even had those one sister. I remember we were real sweet on each other. We were talking or whatever, and she didn't even know I believed in polygamy at this time. This was years ago. She just out of the blue says, you know, you're the type of man who needs multiple wives. And I'm looking at her, I'm like, it's funny you say that because I'm writing a book on polygamy, and we had discussed it. She didn't know, you know, my work wasn't out at that time, and I wasn't really on the internet talking about it. So women can sense when you have to have another woman. I've even heard of American women who purposely found their husband, you know, other women. I also heard about a movie. Someone told me about a movie, and I have to get the name. And I have it documented in my book, where in the film, these are two A-list actors. The wife was dying from an illness. She had a few months to live. And she told her husband, look, I want to find you another wife to replace me, because she didn't want her husband to be alone. Now, this is something I discuss in the book. That's actually wise. If you ever have, and I have a chapter on contingency plans for the family. Even if you're a monogamous, because, you know, monogamy is normal. You know, we we
Right.
consider, we
usually start off that
Natural
way.
evolution
Yeah.
of things.
yeah, it's a natural evolution thing. We like monogamy too, but some of us prefer polygamy because both of them are marriage systems that have been created to spread and to build and maintain families. But nevertheless, in the film, before she passed away, because the lead female character did pass away, she ended up finding another wife for her husband. And, I guess it just talks about the journey and how they actually ended up enjoying it. But that's something that you should always consider in your living wills, in the wills that are active after you pass. I'm talking to the men. Women can have a will too. It's something that you can't implement. But it's wise to watch out for the people behind you if you do pass away. So,
I've actually met quite a few polygynous families, especially when I went to the, if you want to call it a debate, I call it the slaughter. You understand what I mean? But I actually met 3 of them, and I've actually spoke with them, talked with them, and there's quite a few that I know of. And I saw a different spirit in them. Automatically you got this system of monogamy out here that champions itself as righteousness with the constant divorce, remarriage, the breaking of homes. And you often hear debates about, is polygyny lawful? Is it all this? Is it? And then the ignorant, stupid questions of, is it permissive? Is it y'all permissive will? It just gets nonsensical, if you understand what I mean. But when I met these people, I met something totally different than what you would meet in a monogamous society, monogamous church, or monogamous home. I met people who were very kind, and they had a cohesiveness about themselves. That I saw a sisterhood amongst the people that churches, and there's not one, I've never met a monogamous family, church, or couple, anybody who had the oneness of mind, heart, and spirit than those did. And I said that I said to myself, this is the only way that women would actually ever grow close, because right now there's so much competition, they're so divisive, the greed, and it's just utterly amazing. It's sad. It's really truly sad. And they turn the women, and they don't even realize it, into monsters, to where instead of operating out of love, they operate out of hate.
Well, that's the thing. See, I've heard people say, well, Hondo, women are jealous naturally. That's not true. What you're actually saying, a lot of people are so-called biblical people. They're Muslim, Christian, Jews, right? But they fail to look at Torah. First of all, jealousy is a vice. Envy is a vice. So what you're saying is that it's natural for me to be full of vice. But that's unnatural. That's a learned behavior. That's a learned behavior.
Agreed.
When girls are growing up, all you gotta do is go to a playground. Just watch your own daughters. They're not jealous. They're always playing, always sharing. Hey, they'll say, let me see that doll, blah, blah, blah. And unless they're just really selfish at that age, which is rare, they'll say, yeah. Or, hey, I have another one. See, or I have 10 of them. See, I've sat there and watched children, and children naturally share. They naturally do it. You only get jealous when you are taught to be jealous. So
that's right.
What they use is it's called imaging. Okay, so when you're growing up, I used to watch about 30 hours of television a week. Then I read a book, and I've got this one sourced in my book as well. It's called 4 Arguments for the Elimination of Television. It's by Jerry with a J Mander, Mander. He also wrote a book that was, I think it's Against Globalization. He's the editor of a book. Y'all want to check that book out. Because, see, when we watch television, most of those images are centering around just yourself. How can I get something which is temporary? It doesn't really teach you any permanent value. So when you're a child and you're soaking this in, you can't filter that out anyway. So they're constantly watching soap operas. That's in front of them. They see images, only images. When you do see a couple, you only see images of a man and one wife.
Exactly.
And sometimes no children. See, that's all you're getting for decades. And then all of a sudden someone presents to you like, hey, you should engage in a plural economy. And, that's why most people are looking at it as funny. But then when they stop and they consider, like, oh wait, that's practical. or sometimes they'll experience an economic downfall, and then they accept it. Now, when I grew up, when I was growing up, I remember my parents divorced when I was very young. I mean, I was about 2 years old, and a year later, I was sharing this with you yesterday, Pastor Dowell. There was a man in our church, because I grew up in the Apostolic Pentecostal Church. There was a man who had a wife and 7 children. He ended up taking on my mom, and they never talked about polygamy throughout my whole childhood. I'm talking about this is over 10 years. They never came in and said, this is what we're doing, blah, blah. I just observed it. And it was so normal to me. I knew he was married. I mean, I was intelligent enough even at a young age. I knew he was married. I used to play with his children all the time. I even went to college with one of his daughters. See, so it's just normal. It was normal for me to see a woman helping her man in business.
Exactly.
And then having another woman, at the house or doing what she did,
Well, we're talking about responsible men. We're talking about men of character, integrity, and honor, unlike what this society has created.
And he was an entrepreneur. See, he had his own business. His own business. That makes a difference.
Yes, sir.
It makes a difference when you work according to your own time, because it allows you more room to engage in self-development. It allows you more room to become a man of character and integrity, things like that. So, and then your creativity jumps through the roof, because now you can wind down and say, okay, like my ideas for my book have just increased when I started working for myself recently. So,
all right. So, hey, finishing off with Elias Ask, Brother Hondo over here, on this particular video, because my arm getting tired on this camera. But I will tell you this. The beautiful thing about actually meeting Brother Hondo in person, he had picked up the phone and said, hey, I'm going to be in the area, Pastor. You know what I mean? And I said, man, you're going to be in the area, swing on by. You can spend the night here in my home. And that, of course, that's Hebrew culture as well.
absolutely.
That's Hebrew culture. If there's no need for nobody to go out there and spend money out there in a hotel room where you can sit here and go into a city. And if you find someone that is worthy, there abide.
That's right.
But the one thing we can say about his book is that it is not a book of plagiarism, because he does his own independent studies and research. And what I see is that you're trying to create something new from the subject rather than regurgitating old information,
Right.
and then just repackaging it again and again and again. So I think your work is respected personally, because I study, I read, and I study, and I comprehend, and I know exactly what you're doing. So I understand the reason why your book has been 78 years in the making.
Yep. When the second book dropped this year, it's a 7-year project.
All right. But anyway, it was 5:30 in the morning because we've been up since 4 o'clock, 4:30 here at Straitway. And it's one of these moments right here. I appreciate you coming into my home.
Hey, I appreciate you for having me. I enjoyed it, and I got to finally meet everybody who I've been talking with for years now, like literally. So, and I've been observing your work, and I've been observing your videos as well, Brother Fliver. It's just good to finally get in the same space and to build on the same subject. It's a lot different. It's a lot stronger when you're in person.
That's right. All right. With that, we'll say shalom, shalom, shalom. The King coming.